Hey, Coolerbot, what is that that's in your tank this time?
Mountain Dew.
Why is it brown then and not, green?
Yeah, he mixed regular Mountain Dew with Code Red. He said it was on theme.
Whatever. Fine. Just fill me up, Coolerbot.
Look, I'll hose him out later, I promise.
Man, you better. I've been scrubbing black, white, red, and green paint off of basically everything for like weeks.
I will, okay? Look, as soon as I finish reading this issue of Spawn, I'll get to work. Hey, Coolerbot, top me off.
This stuff actually tastes pretty good. Hello and welcome to Crew Expendable. I am Donut Rohrbacher.
Sorry, I knew it was coming. It's still funny. And I am sandwich with one bite taken out of it, Hallstrom.
And we're just a couple of fans who are passing our time contemplating the morsels of the alien universe.
Hell yeah. Solid intro. You know what? Maybe we should work on them together all the time.
Yeah, they turn out, better every time we actually, work on them. What are the chances?
Ordinarily, we surprise each other. And
yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
And usually by surprise each other, I mean we both scramble to think of something right as we hit record. So.
Yeah, half the time what it is like you're about to hit the record button and then one of us goes, do we both have our designations? And the other one goes, oh no. The other half of the time that happens right after we hit the record button, not right before.
Sometimes, yeah. But hey, we're back on track, man. We're getting things under control.
We're doing our best.
We are. Really kind of craving some Mountain Dew now, though.
You would.
I don't have any.
Neither do I. I went and bought some snacks earlier, but I did not pick up any Mountain Dew. I did pick up some Mountain Dew the other day. They have a couple of new flavors.
Yeah.
Now that they're just like selling Baja Blast in stores now.
Sure, yeah.
I picked up a couple of new flavors. One of them was Tropical Punch Baja, and I don't remember what the other flavor was, but I tried that too, and they were both pretty good, I thought.
I have a pretty strict rule for myself that I only if I drink a soda, it's got to be a sugar-free variant. So that does limit my options when it comes to the expanded Mountain Dew roster. But hey, it's all right. I'm still living a satisfying life.
I hear you.
Kenny, we are going to talk about Alien Black, White, and Blood issue 2, finally.
Issue 2.
Spoiler alert, our next episode, guys, is going to be Alien Black, White, and Blood issue 3. And we're going to record that one right after we record this one.
Sure, we sure are, baby. We sure are.
Yeah, we got the time. We're getting things consistent again. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Before we jump into our Black, White, and Blood talk, though, I want to talk a little bit about an email we got from a friend of the show, Ichabod Drift. I have shouted them out on the show before as Instagram Aaron. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had some thoughts for us on the Romulus teaser.
They sure did have some thoughts. That is correct.
First of all, Ichabod Drift, I am not going to read the entire thing. This is a fantastic email. You know what? Maybe I am going to read the whole thing. So let's get into this. All right.
Well, hope everyone's strapped in then, because this is a pretty long email.
Buckle up, everybody. What's up, Neil and Kenny? I've been threatening to email this discussion to Neil on IG for at least a month now, and I figure a single email is easier to keep things organized than a massive DM conversation. Just going to interject here. I love the DM conversations. I'm always open for those. It also ties into your just released Romulus trailer discussion with no spoilers, so here goes. Since Prometheus and Alien Covenant were released, I've seen a common complaint amongst the fandom that absolutely kills me every time. Over the last several months or so, I've read interview quotes from Alvarez and Howley, the Alien TV showrunner, and our man Fede gets it right on the subject. Meanwhile, Howley falls into this logical pratfall at the core of my angst. Why does the technology of Prometheus and Covenant look so much more advanced than what is seen in the first 3 films when they take place before those films chronologically? That just makes no sense. Bad filmmaking, etc., etc. This is a thing. This is Neil interrupting. This is a thing I've had an issue with. I think we've talked about it on all of the episodes surrounding Prometheus, Covenant, and Alien and Aliens, right? I know we talked about it with engineer Carissa. You know, she had some good points on how the equipment would be different. I think we've vaguely addressed like reasons why this could happen, you know. But I really like the way that Aaron put this in this email. Now, this isn't a defense of Prometheus or Covenant. So while I enjoy both for what they are, I absolutely recognize their many faults. That said, the advanced tech seen on the Prometheus and Covenant ships does not contradict the Nostromo, the Sulaco, and even Fiorina 161 facility, because the scenarios are different for each. In Alien, we see Weyland-Yutani using a repurposed ship as a towing vessel being manned by low-tier employees. If the Nostromo can do the job as is Weyland-Yutani really going to spring for all the bells and whistles for these space truckers? I think we know the answer. Likewise, in Aliens, it becomes clear in the plot that the company, or at the very least Burke, already knew of the Xenomorph's existence, and he wanted to control the situation as much as possible, hence selecting the inexperienced Gorman, and likely by extension the Sulaco itself, as expanded media references how the Sulaco is in a state of disrepair due to many within the Colonial Marines believing the ship to be cursed. With a truly state-of-the-art ship and likely a higher-ranking crew of Marines as a result, it would have made it more difficult for Burke and the company to achieve their true goal. I probably don't need to explain why everything is run down on Fury 161. The movie explicitly explains why. Let's look at Prometheus and Covenant. The former is a one-of-a-kind exploratory vessel undertaking a first-of-its-kind mission. Oh yeah, and the CEO is secretly on board. Do we really think Weyland would take the John Hammond route over actually sparing no expense? Nice. Nice to dig at John Hammond. In Covenant, we're told this is among the first serious extrasolar colonization attempts. That in and of itself would surely demand a gargantuan budget and the subsequent top technology of the time to ensure success. It makes total sense the Covenant was high tech. The point is the levels of technology we see in each movie make total sense to the story each one is telling, and they can coexist the same way you can see an electric vehicle driving beside the dude still driving his 82 Toyota pickup because it still works. So now we're going to go into a thing, a quote here from Fede Alvarez from a Games Radar interview. When he's asked about the setting and its retrofuturistic design, Alvarez said, "Technology in the world of Alien can change vastly, but I think it's not dependent on time. It's dependent on place, where you are." Aaron says, I cannot express how happy I was to read this quote and immediately said out loud, "This guy gets it." I was already on board with him as a director, but this was just further confirmation, and I'll echo what you guys said in the Romulus trailer episode. I think we're in good hands.
That's right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he gets it. I mean, that's everything, you know, all of these arguments you've made about the various ships and the various technology levels on those ships, they all track. And this quote on it's not dependent on time, it's dependent on place. That makes a lot of sense. On the flip side, Noah Hawley said in an interview with Hollywood Reporter, in terms of the mythology, what's scary about this monster is that when you look at the first two movies, you have this retro-futuristic technology. You have giant computer monitors, these weird keyboards. You have to make a choice. Am I doing that? Because in the prequels, Ridley made the technology thousands of years more advanced than the technology of Alien, which is supposed to take place in those movies' future. There's something about that doesn't really compute for me. I prefer the retrofuturism of the first two films, and so that's a choice I've made. For starters, I disagree that the retro tech is what makes the Xenomorph scary. I don't really get that correlation at all, even after reading the entire article. Same here. Okay.
Yeah, that is not what I would call the scary part of Alien.
Howley is making the right choice, if only for the reason that I think all three of us, as well as the majority of the fan base, just think the retro look is cooler. But why not just say that? Not getting that different stories necessitate different settings, and feeling the need to explain in a harebrained manner makes me concerned that, unlike Alvarez, he doesn't get it, which is concerning to me coming from a showrunner. I will be fair, we know even less about the show than Romulus, so I don't doubt that I am over-exaggerating this potential problem due to being triggered by the lack of understanding of the core premise being tackled in this email essay I've composed. But I just wanted to pick your brains on this question overall and see what you think, and if I am, as I said, just overreacting due to being triggered. Thanks, friends. Looking forward to a response when you get to it. You're getting this response on air buddy. Also, P.S. loved Kenny's dramatic reading of the trailer script. I told you it was a good idea, dude. I told you. Stay frosty, Aaron.
Further cementing that my comment on the previous episode is pointing out once again, it was Neil's idea for me to do that.
Yeah, so that's the question. Like, how do we feel about this? I have a pretty strong opinion on this.
Mm-hmm.
First, I just want to say, Aaron, you laid out the differences in technology in a way that was always sort of banging around in my head, and I could recognize, but I couldn't really like articulate or understand. So, you know, you've made a strong case for why the tech in each movie is the way it is, and I'm fully on board with this idea. Like, it makes sense. It works. Like, of course, you know, Peter Wayland isn't going into space, you know, in a jalopy, right? And of course, the space truckers who have a working, functioning ship are going to keep their ship working and functioning. You know, that's just the same. I mean, take the trucker idea literally. You see newer like truck cabs, you know, and older ones out there, right? Hauling freight across the country. You know, everyone just needs a job and needs the tool to do their job, right?
That's right.
So yeah, I absolutely buy that argument, and I do think that what Alvarez said is right. You know, colonies may have older equipment, right, less up to date equipment, but they're colonies, and it's hard to get new tech out there to them. Stuff is expensive. They need things that are going to be easy to repair. You know, all of that stuff tracks, right? I don't think if I were out in space, I'd want a whole lot of technology dependent on touchscreens, for instance, because like unless you've got a U-break iFix on world, like you're going to be kind of boned, you know, if you drop your iPad, right?
That's true.
And I'm glad that Alvarez sees that also. Do you get any thoughts about that side of this email?
I mean, mainly just that, yeah, he's correct. I mean, his assertion as to why, yes, that is why the stuff like, you know, the super high tech stuff in Covenant and Prometheus, that's why it didn't bother me, because it's like, you know, like you said, like the email said,
right.
The fucking CEO of the company was on the ship. They're not going to send him somewhere in the Nostromo. You
were kind of always fine with that. You kind of always understood that.
I mean, and like another thing, like another good comparison point is take Star Wars, for instance. And
Sure.
I don't even mean the comparison between the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy.
Right.
Even in the original trilogy, like on fucking fake nerd alert. I totally fucking forgot Tatooine. That's the planet I was trying to think of.
It's called Arrakis. Okay.
Sorry, I apologize. You're right. But like, you know, when Luke needs to go into town to like, you know, pick up stuff, like the only stuff that's really available even on like the capital of the planet is like, you know, low rent, like decade old stuff.
Right.
Half of it's broken down and needs to be fixed. And it's like, we never see Alderaan because it gets blown up. But like, you know, your Alderaans, your Coruscants, places like that, those places have like the supreme cutting edge of high tech.
Yes.
And those two planets exist in the same universe at the same time in the same trilogy, and no one was complaining about it then, you know?
Yeah. I got another, hold on. Also, I believe it's called Barsoom, because I am a John Carter fan, everybody.
Of course.
All right. That's what the Barsoomians call, that's what we call Mars. Okay. Yeah. Again, like you kind of got this from the jump, and I was sort of like, it just doesn't make sense. And I think the thing that I was reacting to was that I prefer the as we all do, prefers the aesthetic of the first couple of movies, you know. I mean,
it looks cool because it was already kind of dated when they first made it.
Yeah.
So now that we're 45 years out from that, since it never looked dated, it just kind of looks timeless now, you know?
Yeah. So my fear, let's talk a little bit about the show, which we know nothing about. You know, Hallie just saying like, oh, I just made this choice because I prefer it. Like, I do think that that's valid, but like, is he making that decision across the board? Because what the movies have set up, and what Fede Alvarez said has also set up this idea that it's, again, the technology is dependent on the place you're at. Is the show just going to take place in an area that has this lower tech stuff, or are we going to be able to see a comparison between like what's going on there and what's going on in the offices of like the Weyland-Yutani facilities, or like a more modern colony, like a more like, you know, kind of like in the last Black, White, and Blood issue, I think, or was it in one of the Bug Hunt stories where like there was like a shopping colony basically?
That was I think that was the short story about Bishop Broken.
That was the Bishop story, right? Like
I think that was from Broken.
I guess my curiosity is the Alien TV series going to, is all of the technology across the board going to feel retro futuristic, even in places where it wouldn't make sense for it, given what Prometheus, Covenant, and the other movies have kind of set up, right? Like, are we going to get that Coruscant Tatooine juxtaposition, or is he just like rewriting the way technology works across the board?
I mean, I have to assume, because the literal quote is, you know, he made the tech thousands of years more advanced. There's something about that doesn't really compute for me.
Right.
I prefer the retrofuturism of the first two films. So that leads me to believe that the level of tech the show will be operating on is 1 and 2 era, which is strange because the show takes place before the first movie on Earth.
Right.
So why would the tech look the same, you know?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess we really got to wait to see what the execution is like, and like what areas of Earth we're going to be spending our time in. Because, you know, I think about, I don't know, Blade Runner, right? Like that technology was looks dated across the board, even in the high tech, you know, buildings and everything, right? But there are still like the back streets and things like that where everything is run down, you know. Yeah, I don't know. I guess if the entire series takes place in like a rundown colony or something. I know we're on Earth, but that doesn't mean that there aren't colonies. We don't know what's happened to this place. We know from Alien Covenant that it's kind of a wreck, right? From Alien Covenant Origins,
for sure.
Which you know, again, I'm thinking we're going to see some Earth Savers in this TV show.
I know you're thinking that. Don't worry, I didn't forget.
You know, but that novel presented a world where everything sort of felt, it didn't particularly feel outdated, right?
For sure.
So yeah, I don't know. I guess like the bad answer is we got to wait and see more and get some more plot details and things, which is something that I'm probably not going to be privy to because, again, I'm not seeking out spoilers for any of this stuff. I'm just excited to see it when I see it, you know?
For sure. Same.
Aaron, thank you again for this email that I attempted to read flawlessly and didn't do a great job of, but some editing will fix some of that.
It's fine.
Points well taken. And yeah, email us anytime. I was about to call you Corey. Holy shit. Corey's my co-host from the other podcast. Kenny, where can people email us?
mother@crewexpendable.net.
Man, Corey's a cool guy. You know, that wouldn't have been an insult. Just, you know.
I mean, it wouldn't have bothered me. That's fine.
Yeah. And yeah, mkpodquest.com to hear Corey. And they made another one.
Also that, yeah.
Podcast.app.
Podcast.app.
All right. Let's are you ready to jump into Black, White, and Blood issue 2 from Marvel Comics?
Sure, let's do it.
Should we do a brief recap, since our lead story in this is a continuation of one of the stories from the previous issue? Should we talk a little bit about what happened in Utopia Part 1?
There is what I believe they call a generation ship.
Yes.
Run by the UPP called the Forward. The
Forward.
And they are on their way to what is referred to in Mass Effect Andromeda as a golden world.
Sure. Yeah.
Basically another planet that they can live on that's like Earth-like in its various qualities.
Yeah.
And while they're on their way there, at some point, like early on, like I think it's like, I don't know if it's just a couple of years in, but I think it's like still with the generation of people that left on the ship in the first place.
I think it's 50 years into their journey.
Well, I think the second issue is 50 years in.
When it starts, yeah.
But like when issue 1 takes place, I don't know if they ever actually say how far into their journey it is. And me saying that makes me realize that I'm getting into the weeds and none of that actually matters to this point.
Sure.
They get I believe, some kind of distress signal on a planet, and they go down there and they discover some kind of bunker or ship or something.
Yeah, they find, sorry, I'll just pop in here. I have it open. They find a floating Weyland-Yutani ship in space with a distress beacon.
Oh, okay, it's still in space. I thought it was on a planet, but okay. So they go on there to rescue the person, and then what they discover instead is a Xenomorph queen, if I recall.
Yep.
And so they get freaked out and flee. And while they're fleeing, they seal up that ship behind them.
Yes.
Stranding some of the people that came with them on the other side of the door.
Yes.
And Siostra, our main character, the facilitator, I believe her title is.
Yeah.
The comic ends with her basically just contemplating her role and what happened. And then we see a Xenomorph scuttling around on the ship that she does not.
The ship has like all of these different sections dedicated to, you know, growing crops or repairing things or like education, you know, all of these basically like separate areas along this ring. Because this is a socialist society, you know, everyone equal. That's the big thing. When they don't just close off the ship they found, they close off the entire docking section with some of their people still inside. And because it's a socialist society, all of these decisions to try to rescue the ship is all needs to be unanimous consent from all of the different areas on the ship. You know, all the leaders of the different, what do they call them?
I don't remember.
Rayons, all the different rayons. And the big question at the end was that they reveal that they have had soldiers in cryosleep on this ship that most of the other people on the ship weren't aware of. And it's like, do we vote to wake them up to help us stop these alien creatures? And the vote was unanimous that yes, they will. And that brings us now to Utopia Part 2, written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, with art by Michael Dowling and Chris Sotomayor doing colors. Same artists as last time, same writers. And we're picking up right away with Siostra sort of awakening all of the soldiers out of cryosleep.
Sure is. She jacks into their system, wakes them up, and then while, after the door unlocks, she goes in and starts talking to him. And side note, Neil.
Kenny.
Maybe I just forgot something from when I was reading Utopia Part 1.
Yeah.
Did you know that Siostra was a synth?
Siostra had some things plugged into her head here and there. I don't think I decided she was fully a synth. We do see her plug in the thing into the back of her head like the Matrix in this issue. And I remember thinking, I'm thinking this is a synth.
I saw that. I saw her, jacking in Matrix style. And I went, oh, she's a synth? Yeah. I don't remember them telling us that in the previous issue.
Yeah, this one doesn't make it explicitly clear that she is. But she is, guys. We already read issue 3.
And even if they hadn't, we would be told that in a page or two when there is a 50-year time jump. So
that's a good point. Exactly. All right. So we are 50 years past the events of the first one. We will no longer endure the injustice forced upon us by our forebears 50 years ago. Yes. Yeah,
I should say the time jump is actually in between the two issues. It doesn't happen during either one of them.
Right.
It's like after issue 1 ends, issue 2 just jumps forward 50 years in the future.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because, like, you know, for like an entire 2 generations, that door has been sealed, basically taunting them this
Right.
entire time. And so finally people are like, it's been like 50 years. Should we finally go in there and clear those guys out? And so they took a vote, and yes. Right. And then so immediately after the vote, when she's activating all of them, is when the issue actually starts.
Yes. Someone named, damn, I just lost the name, Counselor Dova, I believe, is like, we've endured this for too long. The people have now answered. We want the troops, and will you facilitate? And Siostra, the facilitator, is like, yeah, I will facilitate the wakening up of the soldiers. Done. All right. So we meet Corporal Keon, who is the leader of this troop.
He sure is.
And man, she keeps doing these things. She did it in the last issue too. She does it all over these ones where she says, would you like me to tell you a story? I would like to tell you a story. Major hints that this is a synth, right?
Yeah. The two of them sit down.
And we find out it's been 57 years that they've been in cryo sleep. So that means this entire mission has been 57 years.
Well, that's the thing. That was the reason why I was like, maybe issue 1, the people around Siostra were the people that got on to leave on the ship.
Right.
Because they say it's been 50 years since they've been sealed in, or since the Xenomorphs were sealed in.
Yeah.
But the soldiers have been in cryo for 57 years.
Yes.
And there was no way to get them on cryo after the ship had already left.
Right.
So it had to have been 57 years since the ship left in the first place. Which leads me to believe that issue 1 took place 7 years after the ship launched.
Yes, I think so. What if the ship launched at the exact same time Ripley was getting in the Narcissus sleep pod there at the end of Alien? And like, I
even wrote in my notes, just an Easter egg, or does that matter somehow? Anyway,
we'll see, because
it never comes up again. Like the fact that it's specifically 57 years, I don't think ever comes up again.
Right.
So turns out it doesn't matter, but I didn't know that at the time.
Yes. So Siestra's going all over the whole thing with this, and she's expressing her concerns about this. She's explaining there's a xenogenic event that the people on the ship call the curse, and that she is worried that Corporal Keon is going to start a war. And she's like, yes, I'm worried about that. He says, why did you wake me? And she says, the people woke you. I simply facilitated. But these people are still my responsibility, you know.
Also, I should point out that, you know, like you mentioned during the talk, she gives a big old gas about like how it's like her responsibility and his to, like, you know, continue to uphold their way of life and so on. And she even straight up asks him, are you going to be willing to do what it takes to uphold our way of life? Can I trust you? And then he says, basically, yeah, you can trust me. But he sidesteps and does not actually answer the first question, which I thought was notable. And turns out that is notable.
Yeah. But he pranks her.
Yeah, they do a very cool, at first I thought it was like a jump cut to like the future or a theoretical future or something.
Right.
And then I realized that wasn't quite what it was going on, but like it cuts to this shot of like him on like this big, like tracked wheeled thing being led through like a big like storage room or whatever.
Yes.
And there's like a whole crowd of people and they're all cheering him, and there's like confetti and there's like big pictures of him slapped up on the wall.
Just immediate dictator shit, right? Just
yeah. And like while that happens, she's like in VO, she's like, I should have fucking kept that guy on ice.
Yeah.
And so when I read that, I first thought they were like cutting to a future several years later where he had already taken over everything. Yeah. Going back and reading it again, I think what's more likely is that they were just like giving him a big welcoming party because he's like their savior that will end the curse.
Right. Yes.
So I don't think he actually like has become dictator, which is how that panel read the first time I came across it.
Sure.
That's the distinction I'm making.
Yeah, but he's eating it up though, right? It's
for sure.
So he did sort of prank her, right? Because he was like, look, she's like, can I trust you to uphold the principles? Can you assure me this will not be a battle you will lose? And he's like, I have never lost a battle and I never will. And then she's like, I felt safe in that moment for the first time since the doors fell on Fullhorn, which is the Ryan where the dock was, Ryan Fullhorn. It was a beautiful feeling, a steadying, a trust. I should have left him locked in that damned room. Whew. I'm just going to say here, I really like the writing in this. I like the writing.
The following conversation is actually when the story tells us that between issues there had been a 50-year time jump.
Right.
This, we're told about the curse. He's going to, unseal the door and go in there. And then there is an extremely sick montage that I absolutely loved of the page is split into two unequal halves. On the left side, on the left side, most of like the horizontal panel layout is taken up of like scenes of groups of soldiers fighting the aliens, and in each one of the 6 horizontal lines, it's like a different one of the 6 like sections of the ship.
Yeah.
And then on the right side of each one of those horizontal lines, there is a scene from Command with Commodore Keon.
He's gotten a promotion.
Lieutenant, whatever it is. I don't remember what rank he was, but it's him in the command center hearing what's happening in the left-hand panel and reacting and giving orders, but in each successive panel in the command room, another one of the sectors is indicated to have fallen, and he's getting progressively more and more mad as the panels go on.
Yeah,
I fucking love it. It ruled. It was great.
It's a great page. We've got 5 of the Ryons here, and one by one we're seeing them get blacked out on the map of the ship, to the point where on that last one there's only 2 left, right? And it looks like there's conflict in both. I believe the red shows like where the conflict is happening, maybe. And yeah, man, the game is over, man. Game over, right? So like he goes from like being real cocky about this thing, like this is fine. War is not won by retreating. It's won with momentum. We have our momentum. We can rely on this other sector for water. We don't need to rely on Ryan, Magellan, et cetera, et cetera. By the end, he's screaming, all those who can fight will arm them all. We're all soldiers now, right? So he's getting more and more desperate as time goes on, and he starts to like unilaterally like take control and make decisions about what's happening. And Siostra is just standing there in the background, just getting more and more angry and seething each time. She says, we can't put more lives through the thresher. And he says, you don't get to say that to the people, facilitator. And I am the people, right?
Yeah, he definitely implies he has taken authoritative command of the station, and also sprinkles in a little implication of treason there while he's at it.
Sure, yeah. He does confirm here that she is a synth. He says, myself and the synth need the room, everyone out. You've undermined my authority, etc.
He insists that they send every person in there to kill the aliens as much as they can, whereas Siostra says, what we need to do is we need to seal off one of those sections, because that one that's left, we can survive in that. Like, enough of us have died.
Yeah.
There is a small enough amount of people we can survive in that one section. That is what you need to do. And Keon is like, fuck off.
Yeah, they've still got like 943 years on their journey too,
And then it smash cuts to the announcement that everyone falls back into that one section, and they're going to seal the other one, indicating that Siostra, in fact, did get her way, and I guess Keon agreed.
Yeah, because he's arguing like she's arguing everyone to pull back to Rayon Marks, Seal Rayon Dacha now, and he's like, she calls him out. You swore you could be trusted, that if we fought, we would not lose. This is how we live that truth. We can survive in Marks. Everything else is. And he's like, everything else is everything else. You're a synthetic. You don't understand. You think you're flesh and blood, but you're just a robot. You're fed by your purpose to facilitate, make real dreams of mere mortals. That is your joy. I just want to hit that because this idea of joy is going to crop up in the next issue as well, right? But he's like, but we're humans and our spirit has to be fed on pride. How could you be willing to let them live with the shame of defeat, right?
And then it cuts to Siostra looking like extremely upset.
Sure.
And then that's where everyone gets evacuated to the one remaining sector and they seal off the other one. And then there is a voiceover of Siostra being like, oh, he made the right decision. I'm so glad. And while she's giving this monologue, it cuts to a shot of the command room and of Keon's corpse lying there against the wall with part of his skull fucking caved out of his head.
Just a bloody impact spot on the wall behind him, his body slumped down on the floor. Yeah. But she gives in her announcement to the ship, to the forward, she is claiming he made the decision, right? Mm-hmm. She's claiming because, in the years to come, we would find it sufficient for our survival to stay in there. There will never be another human leader among the people of Forward. No one could ever measure up to this guy. So she spreads propaganda, right? Basically saying that he died a hero and this is his order, Yeah, she tells everyone that it was his idea to do that so that he will be remembered as such a great hero and in such a way that no one could ever compare, that she could use that feeling to basically take over herself without anyone ever complaining about it. He was the legend the people required, the dead hero they needed. I simply facilitated.
And that's it. To be continued.
That's the end of this chapter of the story. Is it just me or is this a pretty fucking good alien story?
Dude, when she fucking straight up killed that guy, I was like, I literally did not know synths could do that shit.
Yeah, man. She clearly does not subscribe to Asimov's laws of robotics, right? Except she is she sees this war as failing and she sees it's going to doom the entire mission and the entire colony. And her responsibilities are to protect the colony. This is kind of like what we were talking about in Broken, right? In that Bishop story a little bit, I think, in our episode. Were we talking about that or was I just thinking about it on my own, afterwards?
No, we were.
Right,
because
he took
we were talking about it in the context of the end of that story. He remotely turns those guys' masks off, and we were like, he straight up fucking iced those dudes. How could he do that? And then we talked through how he could justify it to himself.
Right, because he did it to protect the hostages in that story. She's doing it to protect the colonists in this, And by not taking that action, it would allow more harm to come to the people he's programmed to be loyal to, basically. Or in this case, Siostra is programmed to be loyal to, Plus, as we find out in the next issue, extremely minor spoilers, a whole lot of people died. And so they don't have a lot of people left on this generation ship. So her thinking in this situation was basically, if anyone else dies, this ship won't function anymore. So I got to do what I got to do. Yeah, man, this story is good. I don't, there's a little bit, and this is clearly informed by, real world examples, perhaps. But there is a little bit of this collapse of this socialist idea falling into military fascism and this and that in this story that I'm not wild about, but I understand what it's based on and what the story is trying to do.
Yeah, plus the fact that she was the ultimate upholder of socialist ideals. Right. But then after she kills Keon, she's like, actually, I'm just going to take everything over now. Yeah. I'm the only one that's capable of doing it right.
And I see the point of the story is trying to demonstrate how the Xenomorphs can fucking destabilize anything. Point taken, clearly that's what's happening here. Everything would have been working flawlessly had they not encountered the derelict, had they not, gotten the curse on board or whatever it's called, had they not then awoken the soldiers, etc., one bad thing begets the next, and everything starts to collapse, right? Like, I understand all of that. And like the idea that like nothing can stand in the way of the Xenomorphs were they unleashed, it's a little, it's a little Watchmen, right? It's a little,
yeah.
little kind of opposite, I guess, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you meant.
The pacing of the story is fantastic, though. The writing is really, really great. The artwork is fucking stellar. That shot with the soldiers fighting like the Xenomorphs. The color palette works really well in this story. That scene where she's talking about how it had been so long since these doors were open. The curse was like an abstraction. Everyone had forgotten what these things looked like, but then that day they remembered. We've got like this flood of Xenomorphs like flying off the screen, coming down on these soldiers who are just firing at them. Fantastic spreads in this. The panel layouts, like that page you pointed out, really, really effective for the storytelling. I'm loving this story. I cannot wait. We've already read the third part. We'll talk about that on the next episode. I cannot wait to read the conclusion as well.
I second everything you said.
And this ending, dude, Jesus, just God. Whew.
Yeah, like when it cut to the shot of his fucking corpse, I was like, oh, snap.
Yeah, man. You want to move on to the second out of 3 stories in this issue?
Sure.
It's a little story called Morsel, written by Paul Jenkins, with art by Luigi Teruel and colors by Andres Mosa. Hope I got those names wrong. I know I got Paul Jenkins' name correct because I said it twice. And
you sure did.
I'm a big fan of Paul Jenkins as a writer, right? He's the man who gave us The Sentry.
He sure is. I unabashedly love The Sentry. Love that guy.
Yeah. I've read some of Paul Jenkins' Spider-Man work when he was doing Peter Parker Spider-Man, and I think he did some Spectacular. I'm not positive on the titles. When he was working with Humberto Ramos, man, I loved those Spider-Man runs. I really like Paul Jenkins as a writer, so I was happy to see his name on the cover here. All right. So this story is called Morsel. This is a shorty, right?
It sure is. It's pretty short. Not a whole lot really happens.
Yeah.
I only have like 2.5 paragraphs of stuff about it.
It's a clever one, though, I think. So we open with like a big crawler, like just cutting through a planet. Definitely some trees in the background, some mountains. It's just running over things. And we're just hearing the communication like between the radio. I think this whole thing is, and I guess a command ship. I don't really know, in all honesty. I think we're mostly dealing with the people in the crawler, aren't we?
It almost entirely. Yeah. It's like a big, like, imagine kind of an APC, but it has wheels that are like spheres rather than tire shaped almost.
Sure.
And it's kind of rolling around over some like big rocky terrain, and there's trees and stuff. And then it cuts to inside, and there's 7 people.
Sure.
And there's just like a shot of like the group of them, and they're all just standing around talking, having some good convos. Somebody comments about how someone's sandwich got stolen. And then we're introduced to Lucy Carrick, who is a donut.
Yes, she is a donut.
She's literally sitting at her table with a small plate in front of her, and she's holding up a donut directly in front of her face, and she's staring at it. Yeah. And her internal thought bubble, literally her first line is, "I am a donut."
Yeah. And some dude comes by also eating a donut, maybe a sandwich. And he's like, "Hey, Luce, I took your sandwich." What are you doing?
I don't think he's ever named. I called him Mr. Sandwich later on in
Sandwich. Well, his name is Charlie.
Charlie. Okay.
Charlie Sandwich.
But yeah,
welcome to Crew Expendable. I am Charlie Sandwich. Okay.
That should have been your title.
God damn it. That's too good. I'm not editing. Let's keep going.
But we find out they're on a planet called Adhafera 4.
Yeah, man.
which they refer to as the Skag, because they even say in the story, Skag, or rather SCAG, is the only 4-letter combination that hasn't already been used, which is why that's what they call the planet.
Was this a joke about swear words? Like, we call it the Skag because all the other 4-letter words were taken, the classic way of referring.
That never occurred to me, but maybe.
Somebody get Paul Jenkins on the line.
But yeah, they talk a little bit about the planet, and it's really nice, and it's another golden world that people could live on.
Yeah.
And they talk about how there's like this conglomerate that like owns a whole bunch of ranches that dot the entire planet.
Yeah, man, space ranches.
And at this ranch, they grow what is effectively space chickens, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm bummed we don't really get to see the space chickens. We just hear about them, right?
Yeah, we never actually see them.
They're described as an octoped species that reproduces like rabbits and tastes like chicken. And it's a pretty lucrative side business if you like vermin for dinner.
Yeah, that's the thing. When I say that they're space chicken, I mean chicken the food, not chicken the animal, because they're definitely not actually chickens. So.
No, but they taste like chicken,
And basically...
Sorry, before we move further, I want to talk a little bit about her contemplating her donut.
All right.
Because, when Charlie asks her what she's doing, she's like, I'm contemplating my donut. It's a Zen thing. It makes it taste better. And then we see more of her inner monologue. See the donut, be the donut. Got to be better than the menu alternatives around here. And then that's what rolls us into the conversation about the livestock and the octoped chickens, but also they're mining for minerals and resources and bonus and avenues of income, such as exotic woods and animal hides. So this is a pretty lucrative planet here, right?
It is. However, I will point out that the chicken substitutes and the animal ranches are narratively the reason their characters are here.
Right.
Because that big conglomerate that owns most of the ranches have indicated that some of them, at least one or at least two of them, I believe, have gone offline. And the reason this group is here is to basically check out what's going on.
Once
listeners,
again,
I'm sure you can guess what's been going on at them.
You can. So far, though, this setup feels very much like that bug hunt story with the space locusts, where one of the thresher combines went incommunicado and off course. And so, in that instance, it was a troop of Marines going to check in on things. This time, it's just another group of ranchers or company people checking in on Ranch 17. We learned the APC here, the vehicle, the crawler they're in is called Goliath 1.
And they're trucking away for a little while, and then they eventually do arrive at the ranch they were going to.
Yeah.
They get out, and the first thing they see is just the entire, I was going to say pasture, but that's not what it is. The entire fenced in area where they keep the cows is open, and all of the cows are dead and have been mutilated. Wow. And
hey,
Neil,
Kenny,
Neil,
you go first.
Would you like to tell me how these cows have been mutilated?
They all look like they've opened up from the inside and something has bursted out of them. I know it's crazy.
Something has burst out of their chest.
Quick correction for me. These are the octoped things. I'm counting legs here.
Okay. All right.
I'm counting legs here. Each of them has 8 legs. This is them. These are the things that taste like chicken. So
I guess we do see them after all.
They look similar to cows, or they look like an 8-legged cross between a cow and a goat because they have horns as well, and the horns look very goat-like. I'm getting flashbacks.
But they taste like chicken. Weird.
Do you think these are the same things we saw was it in Bloodlines or was it in the annual that the alpha, not alpha, but that the xenomorphs came out of, that Cruz encountered? Because those also burst from livestock, from what I remember.
Those are definitely not the same thing, because we see what Corker and Highland goats look like, and they do not look like cows.
Love that you remembered Corker and Highland goats. I don't know how I was able to remember it, but I was actually able to pull that name. Genuinely impressive, because I remember almost nothing from Bloodlines, even though I've read it twice. But I'll never forget Duncan Fields, though.
but yeah, they get out and find these little guys, and they're not little, but you know what I mean. And
Sure.
they're all like, "Oh no!" And so they have a discussion about how they basically about how they're like, oh, the whole reason we set up these ranches here is because like they don't have any predators.
Right.
So what the fuck is this predatory animal that's been killing these things? Did the survey team fuck up again? And then during the middle of that conversation, Charlie Sandwich gets killed when a pharyngeal jaw gets blasted through his neck from behind by a huge xenomorph that came out of nowhere and killed him.
Yeah, man. This xenomorph is fairly standard but different, right? The tubes on the back are more like spikes, similar to the horns on the head of these things, and its tail's got like a crab claw deal.
Yeah, like a little pincer claw.
Yeah.
And I even wrote in my notes, these Xenos look a little different. They have the 90s tech look where everything has like angled glowing lines on it.
Yeah, man. This page is fucking sick. He drops his donut, as this.
He sure does, unfortunately.
Jaw is, you can just barely see the teeth bursting through his neck, from the blood splatter and everything. Oh, man.
Anyway, some Xenomorphs show up and kill basically everyone except Lucy, who they specifically choose to leave alive.
Yeah, man. She they just go on a rampage. Everyone's losing their shit. They have no idea what's going on. Pretty soon everybody's dead except Lucy, who gets sort of approached by a Xenomorph holding half of one of her, coworkers.
And then it kind of looks at her for a couple of seconds, and then it all but shrugs and then walks away.
And her, she's having this monologue about, this terror that she's under. She's like, I'm already dead, but I'm still alive. I'm feeling fear upon fear. I'm praying for my life or for a quick and painless death. Both prayers will go unanswered.
She implies at one point that she thinks that they left her alone because they have rationalized that she'll die sooner or later. And then also at one point, she implies during her VO that she according to her, she thinks they feed on fear.
Yeah, man.
But like, due to the way this is written, I can't tell if she literally thinks that or if she just means that metaphorically.
Yeah, well, I mean, she's referencing her Zen practice of like empathizing with her food, to make it taste better, right? Meditating on what she's about to eat. And I mean, she equates what they're doing to her to allowing her to marinate. The creature knew I would inevitably die, and so it left me marinating like some kind of fear upon fear, like some kind of nightmarish recipe.
Yeah, and that's precisely my point. That kind of implies that she thinks that they literally feed on fear, like in the sense of if she's more scared when they kill her, she'll taste better, I guess.
I think it's similar to the fact that like we have these ranches on this planet full of livestock that will eventually be slaughtered for food. But they're not slaughtering them all at once because it's like, oh, the food is here. We'll get to it when we need it kind of thing. And that's sort of maybe what the Xenomorphs are doing. It's like an echo of what this livestock farming company is doing to another species, So she's realizing all of this because of, she's like, well, like this is kind of, I'm just saying the reason they didn't just eat her right away is like, oh, they don't need to eat her right away. She's not going anywhere. Like she's like the livestock in the pen to them now. You know what I mean?
And to further echo that sentiment, she just kind of starts wandering around the ranch, just sort of like in a daze while the Xenomorphs just run around and do what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually while she's walking around, she kind of like stumbles and falls to her knees. And then she does a couple of Xenomorphs descend upon her. And right as they're about to start eating her, she realizes that it's just like, oh, she's nothing to them. She's just a snack. And then in echoing her previous line from earlier, she says, I am a donut, as she's getting killed by the Xenomorphs.
Yeah, man.
And the end.
Fun story, in my opinion. I do think there's, as we talked through it, I do think I picked up more layers than were originally there. From my perspective anyway. I don't know that I made a convincing argument about them, but yeah, I think that like this was a story about humans being the apex predators, farming animals for their own sustenance, and now a bigger predator has come that is essentially farming humans as their food. And she is quite literally a donut by the end, right? A morsel, a sugar rush.
I genuinely I read this, several days ago, and I'm still thinking about one of the great character intros of all time that I've ever seen is this woman staring at a donut and then going, I am a donut.
Man,
I absolutely love it. It still makes me laugh just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Flawless stuff. Flawless character work.
Good story. Fun story. The art is very good in this too. Again, we're getting all kinds of different art styles in here. I really liked the artwork in this. Everything's very well illustrated, extremely clean lines, as opposed to what we saw in the previous story. It's got this sort of animated quality to it, right? It kind of reminds me of like a Warner Brothers direct to DVD Superman or Mortal Kombat movie a little bit.
For sure.
And I mean that as a compliment. No xenomorphs get killed in this, so we don't really see any green in the story at all. This is really sticking to the black, white, and red scheme. We should say, we might have said this on the previous episode, Danny definitely pointed this out to us, that it's called Black, White, and Blood. Xenomorph blood is green. Using green is totally within the rules of the title,
Still counts.
Yeah, still counts. Something we weren't thinking much about in our previous episode. But this one, no xenomorphs die because the humans thought that they were safe.
For sure.
Yeah, man. I don't think I have much else to say about it. Just a nice vignette.
I am a donut.
Ready to get to our last story of this issue.
Let's do it, baby.
First Day, written by Stephanie Williams and Jethro Morales on art. So this story takes place on Echelon Station, right?
Sure does.
And here's a good example of those more modern space station settings I was talking about in our pre-show discussion about technology, right? Because this one has these large domes, and domes Epsilon from Original Sin. There we go.
Yeah, exactly like that. How'd you know?
And this is definitely a civilian area. We're just right in the middle of the action here with a crowd of people, including a woman holding a baby, running for help, screaming at Private Briggs, a new Marine, to shoot these things. Yeah. And someone's calling her an idiot.
The titular First Day.
Yes.
Apparently she just started. And also I'd like to point out I thought in the opening page or two of this, I thought the setting looked kind of weird and strange, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. A page or two later, I pieced it together. I think this is some sort of zoo enclosure or theme park area or something like that. Yeah. And so I thought that was a really weird and interesting setting for a story like this.
Because we do see a building that is labeled Reptilian Paradise.
Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, they're in a zoo. That's fun.
Has exhibit tanks and stuff inside it.
But yeah.
I'll tell you the thing that's distracting to me, this artwork is putting a lot of focus on the humans and the creatures, and the backgrounds and environments are incredibly sparse by comparison.
They sure are.
And that is done by design. It's I think I like it overall.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with it.
It's maybe just something with me, it's making clearly the stuff with a lot of detail is the stuff you should be focusing on. Mm-hmm. There's something that just feels a little unfinished to me. It is finished artwork, and this was clearly a stylistic choice,
For sure. But yeah, you said, we're Private Briggs. It's her first day. We're on Echelon Station, and Private Briggs has been equipped with a flamethrower.
Yeah, they have. Unloading.
There is a mass evacuation that is caused due to xenomorph attack. And
who would have seen that coming?
These xenomorphs, I gotta say, look pretty fucking cool. They look like xenomorphs, but their heads are all weird and lumpy and misshapen, and they're not bumpy the way they are in the second movie. Right. They're lumpy, which is a different thing.
Yeah, I absolutely see what you're talking about. It's very clearly a stylistic choice.
They also only have 5 fingers, but rather than being normal fingers, each one of those fingers are like big kitchen knives.
Yeah, they're like bladed fingers. It's dope.
Yeah, they're not even like long claws. Their fingers are just blades.
Yeah, man. So as Private Briggs is unloading her flamethrower and probably blocking the view of her teammates right in the middle of action, if this is anything like Fire Team Elite, one of her buddies named Jackson gets gutted by a xenomorph and his arm ripped off.
It sure does. And she's like, yikes.
That xenomorph then gets absolutely shredded by Master Sergeant Sawyer, who was like, we can't do anything for him, Briggs. We got to move on to secondary orders. Briggs is like, what are those? Everyone's dead. And Sergeant Sawyer says, just come on. No, just move. There's no questions, no time. We got to do this, right?
And that's when they head out into the sparsely drawn background into the reptilian enclosure.
Yeah, and definitely a zoo, because Briggs is asking where all the animals were in here, and Sawyer's like, not my concern. So we know where these xenomorphs came from. They came from all of these animals in this farm, or not farm, in this zoo or attraction.
And so they make it to this big courtyard in the middle of like the reptile house or whatever.
Yes.
And the courtyard has like a big giant tree growing in the middle of it.
Yes.
And attached to that tree is a whole bunch of survivors and resin. And then there are dozens of ovomorphs on the floor around the tree
that all look like green tomatoes.
And this is when we find out what the secondary order was. It was, we're bringing an ovomorph back with us when we evacuate. And
Briggs is like, we have to help these people. And the sergeant's like, that's what dead colonial Marines try to do. I don't want to die. This is my last mission.
Yeah, Briggs is like, we need to save these people. And Sawyer is basically like, get fucked. That's not part of the order. So no, we don't. And she's like, I'm going to do it anyway. And then Sawyer's like, look, motherfucker, you're going to do what I tell you to do. And then he threatens her by pointing his gun at her.
Yeah.
And she basically says, get fucked. And then a queen comes out of nowhere and picks him up with one hand and then squeezes him so hard that his eyes pop out of his skull.
Right. Yeah. Well, he screams,
which ruled.
He's like, Briggs, shoot it. And they're like, sorry, Master Sergeant, you aren't my objective. Enjoy retirement in hell. Whew.
And then, she gets a quip in while the queen kills Sawyer. And then she goes, get fucked, Sawyer. And then we're told the end. That is how the story ends. And I was like, wait, what?
I know, right? It's leaving a lot of questions. Is she just going to die now? Or like, is she going to be able to escape? Is she now going to open fire on the queen and put it down with her M41A pulse rifle? Like, how is she getting out of this? There's still a whole bunch of eggs around. You know, it
felt like this story was only like 2 pages long because it went by so quick.
It did. I want to talk a little bit more about this artwork because, again, like this was a very deliberate stylistic choice. I do think that the artwork is good. I think that just lacking some definition on some of these backgrounds it's not clicking with me, but I understand how it would with other people, you know? I mean, it's very clearly drawing you towards like certain focal points in the panels. I think it is interesting the way it's using like the white space. It gives the shaded areas and the pops of color and stuff more, they stand out more. The only time it really, really bugs me is this egg scene because the eggs are just these green kind of tomato looking dots all over the place. And like that's a point where like the color is now drawing my attention to something that's less detailed as opposed to helping highlight something that is more detailed in the artwork, if that makes sense.
That's fair.
I think that's my only real issue with it, honestly, is that one panel that shows the tree surrounded by eggs with the people cocooned in red up to it, you know. The rest of it is, I think, actually working pretty well now that I'm looking through it again.
I will say I am kind of surprised that on like, you know, page 2 or the end of page 1 or whatever panel it is where she finally like gets her head in the game and activates her flamethrower and torches that Xeno.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised they didn't make the flame jets red. They just left that not colored, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Sure. At first glance, I didn't notice it was a flame unit, you know, but then I saw the tank and it was obvious, you know.
Yeah, it has like the little pilot light on the front of the barrel. Yeah.
That would be a fun way to use the red there. Yeah. I mean, overall, this is a 5-page story. It drops us right into the middle of the action, right? Everything has already gone, you know, badly on this mission. And then it ends without a real conclusion. It really does feel like we're just seeing a part of the events.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think happens to Briggs?
I honestly hadn't really thought about it like a whole lot because I was mainly just when I was thinking about the story, I was just trying to like, you know, piece everything together in order. But now that you've put me on the spot, like what's my first gut instinctive reaction? I think her plan is to immediately just cut and run. Probably.
I don't see him getting away though. I think Briggs is also going to die. Especially if Briggs was I was going to censor myself on that, especially if Briggs is like hell bent on trying to save the people.
Well, I think it's one of those things where she was going to, and then the queen showed up and she's like, well, that's not really an option. Bye.
Right. But just stand by here to get a quip in while the sergeant gets his head popped, while the sergeant gets squeezed like a Capri Sun.
He sure does.
I love that this was his last mission before retirement. You know,
yeah. What are the chances? You know,
it's such a fun. It's always a hilarious cliche whenever that crops up. You know,
it was his last day, the same day as her first day. What are the chances?
Yeah, man. Fun story, not one that's gonna like sit in my brain forever. But you know, in this format of short stories, that's bound to happen, right?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, some of them are always going to be more memorable than others. That's okay.
Yeah, and like the star of this series really is this Utopia story, at least so far. You know, it's the longest one in each issue. It's going to span all 4 issues. You know, it's the story, right? And these other vignettes are fun and similar to Bug Hunt, I like how they're exploring different corners of the alien universe. They are all Xenomorph centered still. But yeah, I think it is helping to sort of flesh out the world of these Marvel comics a little bit overall.
For sure.
Which is something, as we've spoken about, I've desperately sort of needed. General thoughts about issue 2 of Black, White, and Blood?
Okay, it was very good. However, I don't know if the reason I wasn't as wowed by it is because it isn't quite as good as the first issue, or if it's simply because I wasn't expecting the first issue and so I was caught off guard. But then when I read the second issue, since I had already read the first one, I already had like a better idea of what to expect.
Right.
Like, I don't know which one it is, but like my gut instinct tells me I think I liked the first issue a little bit more.
I think I like
but this one is very good. I think I liked this issue of Utopia more than I liked issue 1's.
Same.
And I'm still going to be thinking about I Am a Donut for a really long time. That's great. Yeah. I did really like that story, but it's like, it's one of those things where the structure of it is basically Utopia and then 2 other stories that you're going to remember if there's something in them that catches your eye. Right. Otherwise, there's just also some other stories there, but Utopia. It seems to be how this comic is structured, you know?
I feel the same as you, but I think I like this issue more than issue 1 because I thought this chapter of Utopia was so good.
All right, that's fair.
That it edges it out. The other, you know, the Paul Jenkins story, I Am a Donut is very fun, and I like that it was a non-military focused story.
It sure was.
I will remember this final one as well, even though it feels like a very cliche idea that we've seen versions of before. You know, it feels a lot like the story from the last issue where the people are like, "Ha, we got you, rich suckers. now the xenomorphs we have at this hunting lodge are going to kill you. But it's like, okay, but how are you guys going to get out of here? You know,
Yeah,
you didn't think this plan through, right?
Yeah, that story in issue 1, I wasn't really wowed by. This seems like a better version of that one.
Yeah.
Like, weirdly enough, going back to a comparison I made earlier, that story felt like in this issue, First Day, felt very Star Wars in the sense of it's a segment taken out of what is implied to be a larger story,
Right.
but it's structured in such a way where we don't really know what came before and we're not really supposed to know what happened after. It's structured in a way where that implies there is stuff that happens on both those ends, but like it doesn't tell us any of that stuff. We're just supposed to get the vibe, which is something that I thought was an interesting choice.
I might need to reevaluate my opinion here, because I'm just now remembering how strong that third story was from issue 1 with the the maternal instinct with the computer, the mother 85
Oh yeah, yep.
100
Yep. Okay.
guiding
That's right.
the child through to survival. That was a fucking great. That was honestly, I do think now, as strong as this issue or this chapter of Utopia was, I do think the first issue had 2 like extremely strong stories. That maternal instinct one really brought that first issue home for me.
The way it works for me is like both issues of Utopia have been great so far.
Yeah.
So I'm just discounting those entirely from my like, how are the stories in each issue?
Right.
Issue 1 had a really good story and an okay story. And issue 2 had 2 pretty good stories.
Yeah.
Do those average out to be roughly equal? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of a toss up, honestly, isn't it? I do think that the hunting story from issue 1, The Hunt, it's called.
Yeah.
I do think that premise is extremely good. The idea of like rich people hunting xenomorphs, you know, the actor trying to get his career back and that kind of stuff. I love the hook of that story. It's the part that falls apart in it is the same thing that falls apart in this story, which is like, oh, you guys didn't really think this plan through, did you? You were just, you know. So I think issue 1 had a really good beginning of a story with Utopia, a really good concept for a story with The Hunt, and then a fantastic story with Maternal Instinct. This one had a fantastic chapter of Utopia, a pretty good story with some like cool moments about these ranchers, and then this last one was just sort of, it was fine, you know. It was cliched and underbaked, and it was only 5 pages long. Like, you know, part of the constraint was page count, you know. I think it was an efficient 5-page story
For sure.
but it didn't blow me away.
I mean, the only thing that I think First Day like the way First Day is presented in the comic, in every other way, I think the way it is doesn't need to be changed, except I think it could have used literally 1 more page
I was
just to show what her plan is there. Like even if there was like a speech bubble where she's like, all right, time to get out of here. And then we see her start to run away and then we get the end. You know?
I don't know what it would be, but like 1 more page to even set up a plausible escape route, or you know, a finality, whether surviving or dying for the character, right? Like if there was 1 more panel even showing an ovomorph opening, right?
Because like she's still in the middle of the situation,
right?
You know, like she hasn't even gotten out of like the climax of the story is actively still happening.
But that being said, you know, there is a complete story in this, whether we have a resolution for that character or not. I think that it is still a complete story. It's just not a satisfying one, maybe. Right.
It's a complete character arc. It starts off with her like, you know, dazed, confused, surprised, scared because she has to be like snapped out of her reverie to attack these xenomorphs. And then it ends with her flippantly telling off her commanding officer while he's getting murdered by a xenomorph.
Yeah.
So she's experienced character growth, which I suppose is probably the point, because like you said, there's only 5 pages. So
Yeah. So it just, not my preferred type of storytelling.
I hear you.
All in all, 2 issues in, this has been a great Alien series, in my opinion.
Yeah, so far, I'm going on record right now. As of right now, 2 issues in to Black, White, and Blood, this is my favorite Alien comic we've read.
I'm not ready to say that for myself, but I do think this might be the first Marvel, collected edition I buy. I will probably buy the trade paperback of this.
For sure. I can see why it's good.
I might pick up Thaw and Descendant. Those were pretty great too. But this is one that I feel like this is a good one to have on the shelf. This is a good one to give a friend to read. This is one that I like to revisit at some point. So anyway, yeah, good series so far.
I agree.
Kenny, I think we should shut this recording down and immediately start our recording for Alien Black, White, and Blood issue 3.
Okay.
You good for that?
Works for me.
Where can people find this show on the internet?
We're still on Twitter at Crew Expendapod. We're on Blue Sky at Crew Expendable. We are on Instagram and Threads at Crew Expendable Pod. Our website is crewexpendable.net. Our email address, as we mentioned earlier, is mother@crewexpendable.net. And our YouTube page is youtube.com/@crewexpendable.
Yeah, go to all of those things. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get our social media links for our personal accounts on our website. There's a way to do that. I'm going to make that happen. Hopefully by the time this episode comes out. If not, sometime in the future after this episode comes out. So stay tuned, everybody.
That's right. Pay attention.
In the meantime, where can people find you on the internet if you want them to?
I am on Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on Letterboxd. All 3 of those, I have the same handle @CYHOBBEZ. I actually just logged a movie last night. If you're paying attention, you should be able to know what it is.
Star Wars?
It's not Star Wars.
Okay.
Neil, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram at Final Neil, TikTok and Twitch too, if you want to get down that way. I'm not really doing a lot of streaming, but sometimes, you should click those badges in the podcast descriptions. Click the one for me, find my social media links, click the one for Kenny, find links to his social medias and his hard drive articles, harddrive.net, right?
Those are there too. It might be hard-drive.net, one of those two.
The URL is correct in the link down there.
Okay, good.
Click the Coolerbot one. Go follow our friend Jade on Instagram at Jade Sketches. You all remember her from our Alien Covenant episode. She did our Coolerbot drawing that is in most of the thumbnails and other art we put out there for things. Click the Tom button. Go follow art_of_Wamtez on Instagram. Go smash that like button on all of his and Jade's artwork. Tom, of course, did the backgrounds for the YouTube videos and a number of other things for us, including a very fun Coolerbot Xenomorph hybrid drawing that's floating out there somewhere.
It's good.
I think it's our profile picture on Threads, actually. So go take
good.
a look at that.
It's a good dang picture.
Yeah. So follow our friends who have done cool art for us, and check out all the art they do that isn't for us too, because it's all awesome. Shout out once again to Aaron from Instagram for his email and a thoughtful discussion on technology in the alien universe. We love it. Please, we love getting emails. We love getting comments. We love getting DMs. Just hit us up. We love talking to people about Alien.
Yeah, Aaron, if you hadn't sent us that email, we didn't know what we were going to do for the intro of this episode. We were like, and then Neil's like, didn't we get an email? And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just be clear. I was like, oh, I want to talk about that email, not like, oh, I forgot we got that email. I just be very clear. All right.
Yes.
We will be back to talk about Alien Black, White, and Blood issue number 3 very soon. Until then, Stay frosty.
frosty.